Our spending habits are such that they'll have that money back in no time. We don't. African Americans who have a sense of history know that we must not think of reparations as compensation for the enslavement of our people in America. Reparations are only a conciliatory gesture. There is no price that could be paid that would compensate Black America for the forced labor, murder, and abuse, along with the suffering of our ancestors. We must not sell them out for a fistful of dollars or a few dollars more. Many of our people believe that monetary reparations are coming soon. I believe that when I see it. What today's video is about is a discussion of the true meaning of reparations. The root of the word reparations comes from the word to repair. We as African Americans are in serious need of repair. The kind of repair that money alone can't fix. The truth is that the United States freed our enslaved ancestors without any form of economic compensation. This forced the overwhelming majority of formerly enslaved Black people right back into the same plantations where they used to work as slaves to now work as sharecroppers. The sharecropper relationship was akin to slavery, where our people were constantly cheated. Sharecroppers were always indebted and could never get ahead. In the 1950s and 60s, Martin Luther King said he traveled across the South and found many Blacks in a condition that only slightly differed from actual slavery. People are told in history that slavery ended in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation. Some say it ended with the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment. However, the truth is Jim Crow laws and Black codes and racial segregation enforced by the KKK, or the Ku Klux Klan, made Black life a nightmare even after slavery was over. So this is Black History Month 2023, and for the most part, Blacks are not interested in their history. The Civil Rights Movement became a consumer rights movement that led Black people to believe that as long as we have the right to consume as white people, or to live where white people live, or to conduct interracial relationships or get married to white people, equality has been achieved. Our ancestors, following the end of slavery, wanted to get as far away from the cruelty of white society as they could. They understood something that today's generation has forgotten. What our ancestors leaving slavery knew was that dependency was the basis of the master-slave relationship. Let me say that again. Dependency is the basis of the master-slave relationship. The slave was not allowed to think for himself. The slave was never allowed to manage money or to benefit from his labor. The slave cared more about his master than himself because the slave was conditioned to believe he could do nothing for himself. As we flash forward to today, Black people are still conditioned to believe that our destiny is in the hands of white people. We reject any message that demands that we take responsibility for ourselves. We feel privileged to live in this great country, but we don't want to own it. We are not interested in owning our fair share of the wealth of America. We believe we are safe as long as we can live in proximity to the white man. When new immigrants come here to this country, they understand that they're coming to own and control a piece of the vast wealth of this country. Our people marvel over the progress immigrant groups have made and continue to make. We often complain that they are given certain advantages that are not given to our people. The truth is, we don't want to do anything but rely on white people. Our so-called leaders love to point the finger at the white man for the problems we face as a people. This attitude created the mindset that destroyed the revolutionary spirit our people once had in the 1960s and 70s. It was the Honorable Marcus Garvey that said, "Any leadership that teaches you to depend on another people is a leadership that will enslave you." Again, any leadership that teaches you to depend on another people is a leadership that will enslave you. Today, Black Americans seem incapable of taking any responsibility for the control of our own lives and communities. We keep talking about the trauma of racism. We talk about white supremacy and post-traumatic slave disorder. The cure for all our problems is to grow up and to recognize that we can do whatever we want to do if we get out of the slave mentality of dependency. Following the death of Martin Luther King, Black America became overwhelmed with messages of a government solution to the problems of Black people. Poverty pimps, masquerading as race leaders, told us all our problems were out of our control. They told us it was the government's fault, and if we just elected black politicians, we would be okay. We elected many of these black politicians only to discover that most of them just wanted a better life for themselves. I recall once having a conversation with a black politician who told me that he recognized that he was pretty much powerless in the white man's system, but he felt that it was important that he be a symbol to young black people to make them believe that they could make progress if they got elected to office and that things were okay. But it was not just the politicians, it was all our people, whether they were in the arts, whether they were race leaders, whether they were religious leaders. All of us gave us the same story. We can't do anything for ourselves. It's the white man's fault. And in doing this, they really weakened the psychology of black people to a point where it's almost impossible to get us to take responsibility for solving the problems that confront us. Race hustlers weakened our resolve to be leaders in solving our own problems. The best description of a race hustler was articulated by the Honorable Booker T. Washington, who said, "I'm afraid that there's a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well, because as long as the disease holds out, they have not only an easy means of making a living, but also an easy medium through which to make themselves prominent before the public." There are two ways to speak to a person. You can speak to their strength, or you can speak to their weakness. We have been lied to and misled for too long as a people. The Honorable Marcus Garvey told us the truth over 100 years ago when he said, "Up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will." The key word is will. What are we as black people willing to do on our own initiative to solve our collective problems? Have we been so destroyed that we only care about our own individual condition? If that is true, those that understand and lament the condition of our people better start making plans to go back to Africa. There's a famous book written by Walter Rodney entitled How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, published in 1973. The same could be said of America today. America underdeveloped its black people. So now we have in many ways become a drain on the country. That's why they are inviting people into this country in record numbers. They also feel confident that they can give us reparations because they know our spending habits are such that they'll have that money back in no time. We don't own or control any of the institutions that sustain our life. This is why we need a global African Renaissance, so that we can mature to the point that we can manage our own affairs. Slavery and colonialism has crippled our minds, and only by taking on the responsibility for our own development can black people regain their own self-respect and the respect of the world. So let's all wake up. It's African Renaissance time. Please like and subscribe and share this message. I'm Brother C.C. Blackman, and thank you for listening.